Meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the special council meeting of January 11th, 2020. We have basically one topic on the agenda today. We do have findings of fact to begin with, but basically it'll be the comp plan and wrapping it up, hopefully. Anyway, council, there are no changes that I have for the agenda, so I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve this morning's agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this morning's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask the council's unanimous consent to adjourn our meeting at noon.
Council have any problem with that? Okay, then we'll set a,
If we can get our business done by noon, yeah, that's fine with me.
okay.
Sure we can.
Okay, the first item up then is
I think we'll be okay.
findings of fact, conclusions of law, discussion, consideration, action on the findings of fact, conclusions of law for the public hearing heard on December 18th, 2019 on the application of a zone change of one lot from R1 residential 1 acre lot to SU special use. Lot 1, Block 2, Tierra Linda, Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 28 of 5.3 acres, AKA 5 Entrada del Norte, NMPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico. Tanya, I believe you're going to speak on this one.
Yes, Mayor, Councilor, you've had this document in your packets. Do you have any questions on what happened, or the account of what happened in this meeting? I don't have anything else, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would move that we accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law for the public hearing heard on December 18th, 2019 on the application of a zone change of one lot from R1 residential to residential 1 acre to SU special use, Lot 1, Block 2, Tierra Linda, Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 28, 5.3 acres, AKA 5 Entrada del Norte, NPM PM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve the findings of fact, conclusion of law for the public hearing heard on December 18th, 2019 on the application of a zone change, one lot from R1 residential 1 acre lot to SU special use, Lot 1, Block 2, Tierra Linda, Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 28 of 5.3 acres, AKA 5 Entrada del Norte, NMPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico. Do a roll call vote. Start on that end. Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Abrams.
Aye.
And Councilor Holly.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to our B item, public meeting, Town of Edgewood Comprehensive Land Use Plan. First up is presented to the governing body by Maida Rubin from Mr. Cog, the Mid-Region Council of Governments, and members of the Comprehensive Plan Committee of the Town of Edgewood. Maida, come on up.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the council. Happy Saturday. I'd like to thank staff for setting us up with this table. We have some documents, and this will be easier to make sure all the edits get in. So I believe you have a memo in your packet for some of the minor edits and things that have been done since we last met. Staff was kind enough to review the document again very thoroughly for some minor typos and things. So if you'd like, I can go through the memo with you item by item, and you can stop me if you have any questions, but then I'll open it up to discussion on your end.
Okay.
So there were 3 things that I addressed in the memo. First is the list of edits from the December 4th meeting requested by council. Second are some small additional edits Mr. Cogg's staff have done to correct several typos, formatting inconsistencies, and minor errors, but that I don't think need to be decided by council, but I've documented them for you. And third are several small edits that have been requested by staff for council consideration, but I have not changed them in the document. So edits from the council that I've done include the sewer lines in Figure 21 wastewater service area map. Page 39. Replace duplicate trails map on page 48 with the correct map, which is the roads maintained by Edgewood. Page 48. Add the Blue Bus and Park and Ride pickup locations on transportation facilities and traffic flow map, Figure 25 on page 47. And please stop me if I'm going too fast or if you have any questions. Include the questionnaire report as Appendix D. And I've done that, and I'd like to mention that it might be easier just in terms of size of the document when you post it online for me to split it up for you. So it's listed as Appendix D in here, but then it would be a separate companion document, just size-wise for your consideration. Reference the 2015 Asset Management Plan and 2016 PER in Wastewater Disposal System section, page 39. Remove the reference to affordable housing, page 76.
I have a comment, because when I was going through this, I found another reference to affordable housing.
Oh, okay,
On
thank
page
you.
55. Up near the top, it says, "Little support for affordable housing options for low-income or fixed families." So I wasn't sure if that needs to be removed or not.
That's similar, and I can remove that as well.
Okay.
if you'd like. Thank you for the catch. Remove. Okay. Include proposed edits from Linda Burke of the Greater Edgewood Area Chamber of Commerce, who is a member of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. So these are her proposed edits that I have implemented per council request. Page 38, use similar statistics and language to describe the Entranosa and EPCOR water providers. Ensure that data used is the most current available. We were able to contact both representatives from EPCOR and Entranosa to get some more updated figures for providers, and Ms. Burke had a comment that she just told me, which is a good point, that I want to double check to make sure that the Entranosa language addresses only in the Edgewood area, just the same as EPCOR. So I want to look back in my emails and make sure it's not including other zip codes. Did that capture it, Linda?
Yes.
Okay.
To Harris and Sandy Park also.
I also had one more comment on that part. The very first sentence says drinking water, and I was wondering if we could change that from drinking water to domestic, commercial, and fire flow, because most of us get our drinking water from Walmart or Smith's.
You get that, domestic?
I'm going to have you repeat that in 1 sec.
Okay.
What page is that on?
It's on page 38.
To domestic.
Domestic, commercial, and fire flow. And then we may just want to leave out all references to drinking water.
Are there other references to drinking water in there that you found?
That's the only one I found, but, we didn't want to list everybody that provides drinking water, I don't think.
Okay.
It might be an old term, because I saw that in the previous comp plan.
Yeah, it probably is.
It's been
but-
in there for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure potable water is more rather than wastewater is the intent. Let me write down Linda's comment real quick. Okay. Page 39, the two paragraphs near the top of the page, second column, were confusing, was the comment. There was a need for clarification on what specific work was being done to correct what specific issues that would begin in late 2019 or early 2020. The next paragraph needs clarification on what specific corrective measures were taken in 2018 and for what issues. So I've changed the language a little bit and added more information, thanks to some information from town staff. Page 43, Equestrian Center, paragraph reads like a specific party is not identified. It appears that it should have said Edgewood hopes to enter back into an arrangement, but during the council meeting, it was disclosed that there has not been an agreement since 2012. So there is some confusion as to who wants an agreement, although there seems to be concern about if the location is being managed adequately and what happens to water during freezing temperatures, etc. So I have removed the statement about the agreement, and I know some resolutions were provided in an email that we can discuss also for what language is preferred on that. Page 46, end of trail occurs annually in June, not April as stated, so I've changed that. Page 49, missing a paragraph break. Page 71, water goal, so on these two I have not changed it. But her comments were about the timeframes, and I know council is going to come back to those as well. But her comment was page 71, water goal C, the strategy should be to collaborate with private water entities as ongoing, not 10 to 20 years. This is necessary because the town's residents' only water resources are private water companies, private wells, or water hauling. The commercial district is supplied by EPCOR, I think exclusively. I don't believe Entrenosa has lines in the commercial district. Page 73, Goal G, Section 16 Master Plan. Revisit the plan should be 1 to 5 years, at least if not ongoing, not 5 to 10 years. We need to have a vision/idea of what that should be in the event an opportunity arises or can be, that may be a typo. So, just for your consideration on those two. Number 2, the following are a list of minor edits staff have made to correct several typos, formatting inconsistencies, and minor errors. I don't know that you want me to read all the way through these. You may have read them previously in your memo, but they should be fairly minor. There are a few in red on your memo that through the all the commotion I did not address, so I'm going to make sure that those are in there, but those are on my radar as well. They're item F, L, and S. And then the following 2 things have been requested by staff for council consideration, but that have not been changed in the document, 2 very minor language additions or changes. Page 15 mentioned that the annexation finalized in 2017 began in 2015 for a little context. And page 40, add that the Blue Bus provides round-trip service Monday through Friday, just for a little more information. And with that, I will turn it back to you if you have any questions for me or want to discuss anything further.
Council have any questions for Maida?
Not on this.
Sandy or this other young lady, anybody want to say something else while Mr. Cog has the floor?
Well, I'll introduce Peyton Showalter. I don't know if you have met her before.
I don't think I have.
She started as an intern, how many months ago? 6
A
months?
year ago.
A year ago, okay. As an intern, and we have hired her as a regional planner. She'll be finishing up her master's degree this year, in May, and so we'll hopefully be able to keep her on full-time. So she's been very integral in doing the editing and working through our planning. So you'll be seeing her. One of the things I would like to say is that we do have a new RTPO planner. He couldn't come today. He just started on Monday, so he already had plans for Saturday. But so we will be bringing him out shortly to meet. His name is Channing Hoffman. So he will be working with everybody on the rural transportation project. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, apologies for not starting with introductions. The one last thing I'll say is that I know that council wanted to address a couple of the timeframes, and one thing that was brought to my attention, just to say again, is that 10 to 20 years may not necessarily be intended to mean don't start it until 10 years. It means that's probably the timeframe that'll get going. But also, just to reiterate, these timeframes were pulled from the last plan. They're consistent with that. So, yeah, the particular ones that council wants to discuss or vote on will include those as well.
Rita, I had a question too. Because we did those were email votes rather than a public vote. I was wondering, I really liked all the comments and stuff like that once that we finally saw them in part of this plan, if maybe we could also include how each counselor voted on those timeframes, since it wasn't.
In the actual comprehensive plan or to council, just so you
To
see
council,
that?
yeah.
I'm sure I can provide that information, yeah.
Okay.
But I just got it from the original. I can do the emails I received from staff for each of your votes.
Yeah.
And then the tally sheet, if you'd like.
Okay, yeah.
But honestly, anything that you'd like changed should just be changed today
Right.
per council.
Right. Yeah, okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to see kind of how everybody voted.
And these are just for guidance as well. This is not a very legally binding document. This is the vision. So, this vote does not dictate that this will not be addressed never, never, never until
Right.
that time or anything like that.
Right.
Just indicates some priority.
Okay, then, the next item then would be public comment. If y'all want to speak to the comp plan, come up to the microphone there at the podium and give us your name and address and give us your comment.
Good morning, Council. Linda Burke. So I was on the Comprehensive Plan Committee. I've looked at this document a lot of times. It's sizable, so it is difficult to try and to envision what might be missing as opposed to what's here. But I do think that the committee, we did our best to try and include things. I did go back and review the survey to refresh myself because it's been a while since that was taken. There are a lot of comments if you haven't had the chance to read through them. I summarized the priorities of the community just for everyone's edification. And the top priorities were to maintain that small town and rural feeling. So these are the things that I think the town wants us to hear and consider as we're putting this plan together and determining timelines and priorities and so forth. So maintaining that small town rural feeling was tops. Maintaining open space and views was very important. Recreation and parks got many, many, many mentions throughout. A variety of retail options, specifically restaurants, came up over and over again, as well as a good balance and mix of small businesses, mom and pop shops, and larger chains that are familiar brand names that people know. There was also quite a bit of request for kind of niche options, things that were more organic food or Sprouts, Trader Joe's, Hobby Lobby, those types of businesses to come here. Roads was another heavily commented area, either desire for more paved roads or increased maintenance on our gravel roads, as well as maintaining a clean appearance, so clean roadways, weeds being removed, litter being removed, things like that. On the economics front, there were comments for more jobs, specifically in the hopes of getting more professional-type jobs out here, like business park or tech park kinds of things. People definitely did not have an interest in the more heavy industrial types of businesses coming to Edgewood. And there was a interest in a nice-looking commercial area and easy-to-find businesses, so wayfinding, basically. How do you find the places that are already here? Housing, there was a heavy bent towards larger lot sizes with some options being included for starter homes or retirement homes, those people that want to come into the housing market, as well as those that are downsizing, and having that variety available within Edgewood. There didn't seem to be a lot of support for apartments or townhomes, but there did seem to be support for clustered or patio-type homes where you've just got a few homes close together to maximize your area space and leave open space around it. Water and wastewater were issues. There is concern about the taste and the hardness of our water. I don't know that anyone can change the mineral content of Edgewood's water. But also a concern for the growth. That is, how will we have water for that potential growth? And there was definitely impression that sewer in the commercial district was favored. There wasn't a lot of input or favor for residential at this time. And so those were just the highlights of what came out of that survey. It was valuable to hear from so many people in the community as we shaped this plan. I think Maida has brought up most of the comments already that I've made previously. There were, on the timelines, I know that you'll be discussing those. Again, I do want to reiterate, on the waterfront, we don't have any other options than private companies and wells and water hauling currently. So that probably should be an ongoing as opposed to a 10 to 20-year priority. Section 16 got a ton of mentions in the survey. People want to know what's happening with it. They want to see something happen, develop it, use it for public space, open space. In the past, the plan included housing. So revisiting that 5 to 10 years from now is probably not the wisest choice. We probably need, the community wants something done with it, look at it sooner rather than later, so I'd move that priority up. And that is as much for recreational purposes as it potentially could be for residential, depending what, again, the community decides that space is most valued for. But once the state land office decides to do something else with it, we've lost our chance. And so that's, I think, what is a thing to consider, as well as with all of the BLM lands that we have option on. Once those are gone, as the other thing I didn't mention was preserving ridgelines and topographic features of Edgewood got very strong in favor of responses. And that's another thing. Once it's gone, it's gone. We can't get it back. So that's something that we really need to give some effort and consideration to, how to do those things. I know that from talking to Tanya, they're not always easy to accomplish, but it's something we should probably look at. I know in other states, they have found ways to do it, and so maybe we can borrow some ideas that have been effective and held up under law in other places. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Linda. Anybody else wish to?
Mayor, if there's no objection, may I ask her a question?
I guess so.
Okay. Linda, I missed your second item. I wrote down the list, but the first one was the small town feel.
Oh.
And the third one was Parks and Rec, but what was the second?
In between was maintaining open space and views. So the items that really got a lot of attention were outdoor active lifestyle, dark skies were really important to people here. Appreciation of nature came up time and time again, open space, wildlife, the ability to have animals on your property, whether those be horses or goats or whatever. The equestrian community element was repeated over and over again. And again, that protecting ridgelines and topographic features.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Seegers?
Yeah, my name is Ray Seegers, a local businessman. Post Office Box 567, Edgewood, New Mexico. Two things that I see here that I think we might consider a change on, and that is on page 39. Okay, there you see a map, which is the wastewater service area, which I assume will have an effect on future planning and the extension of sewer. And I'm very curious to see why we have left out in our future planning for sewer the vast commercial area south of US 66, east of the intersection. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, since everything in there south is, with two exceptions that I can think of, maybe three, most of that land between 66 and the freeway, doesn't have a high residential potential, is currently zoned commercial. And why that isn't, in this document, because the argument can always be made, well, that's not in our, comprehensive plan, so we don't plan to go there. But I can't imagine why you wouldn't go there, because it's going to be very good planning to utilize that as commercial, and many of those commercial uses might have a sewer need. So I would like you to consider to expand between the freeway and 66, the wastewater service area. Whether it's there now, whether we're going to put it in immediately is not the point, but you might have somebody needing it, willing to expand to that area, and we don't want to block them from doing so if they're willing to.
I don't think we would block them because of this map. I mean, this is just a snapshot of where stuff's at right now. If they
Okay,
come
well,
in with a reasonable proposal, I think we'd listen to them.
Okay, well, I think it'd be a good idea to expand it to there. But the other thing is, we talk about rural atmosphere, and one of the biggest problems I see is we continue to pass regulations, subdivision ordinances, road standards, and this kind of thing, which are specific, and they're citywide, okay? But the problem is that we never look at one thing, and I think somewhere in this plan, we ought to look at the economic impact of the ordinances. Every ordinance you pass relating to subdivisions and a variety of other ordinances, and I think staff should consider and maybe get with the stakeholders, the people affected by those ordinances, and try to ascertain from those experts what the economic impact is of an ordinance you pass. Because one of the things that happens if we require paved roads in some areas, then our rural atmosphere is going to go away, because our market for lots, people can't afford $47,000 to $110,000 lots. And that's why you don't see many subdivisions being proposed without high density, because we can't continue to do the large lot development with some of the things in our current subdivision ordinances. So the simple way to fix a problem like that is make sure that staff works with stakeholders who know the business, and we're talking about developers and builders and folks like that, and the economic impact of your ordinances should be considered in everything you pass. It ought to be something that's in there, that's been studied, the questions can be answered, what will this add to the cost of housing? Cost of housing being lot costs in the development phase. And I see absolutely no, reference to that sort of economic impact. So I think it should be considered in most everything we do and everything that's an ordinance passed. So if we require sewer in a certain area, obviously got to go to high density in that area, which we probably need some of, but we ought to consider the economic impact. When you go, eliminate gravel roads in subdivisions, you're talking about $14,000 per lot with 1 and 2 acre frontages added to the cost of that lot, pushing it out of the market for our area and what most people are saying they want to see. So I think in here we ought to at least have some paragraph that says we will look at this economic impact.
Anybody else?
Chuck Ring. I live at 4 Derecho Lane, Edgewood, New Mexico. I'd just like to ask the council, as they go through and evaluate these items, in particular, the sewer, that you keep in mind that we're lucky enough right now for people to be able to have septic systems. Think about what's going to happen in the future when EPA, EID, and all the other regulatory firms or agencies come in and say you can no longer have septic systems. And it is a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow or 2 years from now or 10 years from now, but keep in mind as you go about addressing wastewater treatment options and what your plans are going to be for the future, that you think about those sort of things. The only other thing I would comment on right now is paving. Mr. Seegers said that it's $14,000 per lot to pave in front of a lot. I don't know if that would be mitigated by the other part of the roadway, the other half of the roadway, the other side of the roadway, but that might be possible. But one thing that could mitigate and decrease the cost of paving is to think about chip sealing. We have one road in town that I'm aware of that has been chip sealed, and that's McCall Loop. It has experienced heavy traffic load. People travel that road to get to Range Road in that subdivision, and they also turn left when they get to the end of it and go north along Bassett property and along another subdivision. I would point out that if it's done correctly, chip sealing could be an alternative. If you go to Estancia, you will see that most of the residential roads are chip sealed, and they've lasted a long time. Most of the roads in our subdivisions do not carry real heavy traffic loads. So I would suggest that you really look into chip sealing as an option on roads that aren't arterial roads. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Diana Williams, I'm a business owner, and I was a participant in the process and attended many of the meetings. And the only comments I wanted to make were that I was very impressed. It was a diverse group that participated in the meetings that we attended. Business leaders, businesses, there were residents, there were P&Z. Also, the facilitation that was done by our facilitator group here was quite well done. I just wanted to comment on, I think it was well organized and it was well facilitated. All of the participants were, although they were of diverse economic backgrounds or residential backgrounds or business backgrounds, we all came together and found a cohesive environment in order to actually go through the process and all of the active discussions that we had. So I just wanted to say that the experience was very cohesive, and that was the positive thing about it. And I think that cohesiveness is definitely demonstrated in the community by those meetings that at least we attended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, my name's Brad Hill. I live at 251 Horton Road. I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Edgewood, and I just kind of, a bit of a historical context if I can. I find it really, really interesting to hear what Linda said, the result of the survey. I think if you took any survey over any comprehensive plan over the last 20 years, it's going to be very similar to what she spoke to. I think the vision of this community has always been pretty consistently stated as to what we're currently hearing. And I think everybody in this room understands that the appeal of Edgewood is this rural and kind of small town feel. And I know that there's always this angst, and when I was mayor, I always heard, well, we don't want Edgewood to be Rio Rancho. Well, Edgewood will never be Rio Rancho. I mean, the physicalities makes that impossible. So, but what's really important, and I think what we miss a little bit, is on the demographics. And I'm fortunate to be in a position with the state of New Mexico where I've been asked to deal with issues, and one of them is elder justice. And I think there's an interesting statistic that I use when I do a lot of presentations, and it has to do, in all of human history, of all the people that have ever lived to be over 65 years old, half of them are alive today. And I think if you look around this room, and if you look at this community in particular, you're going to see a bit of a graying community. And that creates great potential, but it also creates some challenges as well. So when we talk about our housing opportunities, and we do talk about maybe some type of cluster housing to provide opportunities for our elders who want to stay in central New Mexico, but are rapidly wanting to flee the urban area of Albuquerque because of certain conditions that are occurring there, that's a great opportunity for this community. But elderly people do not want to take care of large lots either, so we need to have that opportunity. And also when we talk about trying to provide opportunity for young people who are just seeking starter homes, kind of the nice thing is those two things relate to each other as far as how land use can be done. Certainly, I don't think Edgewood is conducive for large areas of apartments or townhomes. I don't think anybody has ever wanted that. But I think a certain type of cluster housing is something that we really do have an opportunity to be able to create and still keep our rural and small town feel. As far as the roads are concerned, I would say, I think one of the challenges that the governing body is going to have to address at some point, and I don't know whether it's within a 5-year time frame or 10 years, but I suspect it's something that's going to happen at some point in the not-too-distant future, is we're going to have to really think about incorporating all of the roads within the town of Edgewood as public roads. Because there's a lot of exclusionary activity going on out there because somebody's going to say, this is a private road. By the way, can the town come and maintain my road? So you can't have it both ways. I think at some point, the town is going to have to figure out some kind of strategic plan to incorporate all roads within the municipality as a public road. I know it's challenging. We looked at it with a lot of difficulty. We were really wanting to go that way, but it's a major issue that affects the housing, it affects economic development, it affects the public works of the community. And then if I can just generally say one thing before I leave, I'm in a position in the state of New Mexico where it's my job, of all people, any complaint that comes into the Attorney General's office regarding a municipality, a local governing body, whether that be a municipality, a county commission, a quasi-governmental entity, I'm the first one that reads those complaints. And I just want to say, I know that there's a lot of angst going on regarding the issues in Edgewood and the governing body and the politic that goes on with this community. And I just want to say, relative to what's going on in other communities, we're doing okay. We really are. So I see things, and I read municipal minutes every week that blow my mind, and I go, I can't believe that they're doing this. And so on a relative scale, I just want to say, this community isn't as bad as maybe we perceive it to be as far as the debates that go on. And healthy debates, I think, are important, and healthy debates can be very positive. I think we just need to really understand, hey, this community is doing pretty well overall. We have some serious problems. And just as far as plans go, I do want to quote Mike Tyson, because I think philosophically it's very important to understand that when he said, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the mouth. And so I just want to say the plan is important, but it's also situational. Because the first thing that can happen is if a crisis happens, whether it's with a sewer, whether it's with a water system, whether it's with a fire event, whether it's with a climate event, what we see in Australia, the things that are going on, we don't know what could happen. But as soon as, what we all have to understand is as soon as a crisis event happens, the plan goes out the window and the governing body has to address the issue at hand. And I just want to, again, commend the people that came together and worked on this so hard. And again, hopefully we can move forward with that baseline understanding and commonality as to what we want this town to be. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Brad. Anybody else?
Katrina Hill, a member of the Prairie Hills HOA out in Meadow Hills Drive. And in reading over the comp plan, I was just curious as to why the sewer that was built in 2017, I believe, out at Prairie Hills, why that wasn't possibly mentioned, since I know we were annexed as part of Prairie Hills. I think we're the southernmost part of the town of Edgewood, but there is an existing sewer. It's had some issues, but it's been provided for the community there for a couple years now, but it's not part of the comp plan, so just
I
curious
think
as
that's
to
just
why that
because
might
it's a
be.
private outfit.
And it's a
privately
private-
owned and maintained.
Even though it's in the town of Edgewood, it
Yep.
won't. And it's private by,
Well, I think EPCOR
HOA.
takes care of it, but the people out there that developed that put it in.
so, okay, and then when the, what was it called? The public notice went out in the December Independent, that was private as well, even though it had to be disclosed in the Independent as far as the wastewater discharge numbers and all that sort of thing.
For that system there, don't know about that.
That may be the New Mexico Environmental Department's regulations to put anything out there that has to do with a sewer. It could have been their regulations.
Oh, correct. Instead of the town of Edgewood, it would be the New Mexico
Yes.
Environmental.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
Tom Torres had his hand up. I think he has an answer.
Mayor, that was the renewal of the permit.
Okay. Did you hear that, Ms. Hill?
Hi, Karen Kaiser, 30 Futures Loop, Edgewood resident. As many people have heard me say, I lived on an island, one of the Hawaiian Islands, for a decade. The entire island is rural, and there's only one little limited portion with sewer system, because much like Edgewood, we're rural, we have mountains, the topography doesn't. I think sewers are needed when you are closely grouped together. I can't see there ever being a need for a sewer system to encompass the town of Edgewood, even thinking, for my grandchildren's grandchildren, unless you did become Rio Rancho, which I agree with Mayor Hill. We couldn't be Rio Rancho even if we wanted to, and clearly no one wants to. Everyone likes the open space. People build their homes on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 acres. But I happened to pull up the EPA site in response to what former Councilor Ring mentioned. Today, more than 1 in 5 households in the United States have a septic system. It's not going to be outlawed by the EPA. If your system fails, you build a new one. And when I hear of the sewer expansion sneaking into the vision for the town, I just don't think it fits. It fits for the commercial area, What Mr. Seegers mentioned makes brilliant sense to me, from I-40 to Route 66. And I've enjoyed going through some of the websites. I believe Mrs. Turner keeps a website that goes through the history of Edgewood, and I've been enough of a nerd to read it. Back to your inception, and that wastewater system was intended to be a commercial wastewater system. So out of some fear that a misplaced fear, really, that septic systems are going to be banned in the future by the EPA, which I think is an untrue statement. I just would not like to see sewer that's going to be enforced on a handful of people that have the misfortune of living on the wrong street be a part of our vision, because it doesn't seem to match what anybody wants. Thank you.
Anybody else?
This is just something short, and I don't know, Maida may have gotten that correction, but I didn't hear her state it. On page 49, it talked about when Edgewood Elementary closed. It has 217 in the copy that I have, and I think that was 2013. Has that been corrected?
That has, Mayor and Council, that was one of the minor edits, just informational.
Okay.
Good morning, I'm Sabina Price. I live at 30 Calle Encantada here in Edgewood. I had sent an email to everyone on the council to have them ponder some ideas. And I'm in the middle class. I do fully represent the poor people, the people that are disadvantaged, the people that really are going to be impacted. You might ruin their lives if you impose $14,000 on somebody that can't even take out a credit. Mr. Seeger said we need to incorporate every individual into the decision-making. And I don't think you guys want to have it on your conscience that you're going to make Edgewood look like poor people are not welcome, or that you're going to force them out because they can't afford whatever expensive projects you guys are planning. There are tons of people here. I've worked in home care. I've covered Edgewood and Moriarty. They cannot afford $1 more out of pocket. Keep them in mind at your baseline before you interject any kind of project, because you're going to ruin their lives. You're going to make Edgewood look horrible. So if you want to have an opportunity here for Edgewood that incorporates all classes, all socioeconomic status, you guys have an obligation to represent them all. Mr. Bassett had on his template that it's all citizens of Edgewood. I expect to have you guys keep to this. You made a promise, it's time to keep it. And that's really more or less, I only represent those poor people. I've dealt with it, I've seen them, I've seen the devastation. You guys need to be on their side too. Thank you.
Martha Eden, I've been a resident of 40 years out here in the mountains. I'm a horse person. I'm on the board of the High Desert Riders Equine Club. And I see in the comp plan so many references to open space, trails, recreation, and yet you have failed to continue to maintain the equestrian center. You've put off buying the Echo Park acreage. So it kind of doesn't square with what the plan says. It doesn't square with the things people say. So I think it's time to go backwards into the time when you were maintaining the equestrian center, when you were talking about purchasing Section 34. You were talking about getting access into Section 32 for people. In August, Section 34 was one of the most beautiful places in the state. In terms of the wildflowers, it was absolutely gorgeous. I don't think we can afford to give that up. Thank you.
name is Janelle Turner. I live at 30 Medill Road, and I'm going to put on dual hats as a citizen and as a member of the steering committee and the Planning and Zoning Commission. I first would like to thank Ms. Linda Burke for the work that she did, and also our P&Z Chair, Glenn Felton. They both have a wealth of experience of putting surveys to work in the community. And a lot of people don't know, but COG brings a template to towns, and it's the work of the citizens that customize that template to fit our particular circumstances. And those two individuals did an outstanding job of making sure that the survey was appropriate to the different groups in Edgewood, because we have several diverse communities that sometimes don't talk to each other because we're a commuter community. People go to work and they don't necessarily associate with a broad, array of their neighbors. So it was a wonderful opportunity. We've had some really good suggestions today. A lot of them really don't apply to the comp plan per se. The comp plan is a very general, broad statement of intent, and I think we've done a good job of bringing in a lot of different voices into that. But what really makes the difference between a comp plan and results are when you pass ordinances, when you have contracts come up on town agendas. That's where the decisions are made that put all of these wonderful ideas into practice. And I would like to invite people to come to planning and zoning meetings. We make recommendations on policy to the council. The council then ratifies them. And all too often, planning and zoning plays to an empty house except for people who have a specific item on the agenda. We do have some planning responsibilities. We discuss things. And our product that we send to the council will be much improved if more members of the public would show up regularly. And I know it can be inconvenient, but you are welcome at town meetings, and please take advantage of your opportunity to have your input. Thank you.
Going once. Going twice. Thank you, public. That then brings us to governing body comment discussion. So let me kind of go back here. A few of these comments I've heard this morning. Linda Burke's stuff about maintaining small town rural feeling. I'm like Brad Hill there. Basically, we've heard that since day one. People move out here for the small town feel and that, and that's how they like to see it stay, a lot of them. More jobs. Again, something that I think every administration that's come through here has tried to do in one way or the other. The sewer service area that Ray Seegers talked about, I don't think we need to put anything in the plan here about that. The comp plan is like a snapshot of time. Where were we at in 2019? We're not going to get everything into it. I'm reminded of something Randy Van Vleck from the Municipal League told us one time. He was up in some small town in northeastern New Mexico, and he asked to see their comp plan, and somebody told him, they started looking around. Somebody says, well, I think that's it over there holding up that table leg. They get used, they don't get used. I haven't seen the time yet when somebody came in and said, well, it's in the comp plan here, you have to do it this way. We all recognize that it's a pretty good shot at trying to, talk about what we want to try to do or what we've done or, stuff up to date. But like expanding the sewer service area, that would be something to take up, with, if we go work on the sewer ordinance or something like that, or if we get, demand for it out there, certainly we'd look into expanding it. That's another thing, like with septic systems, on what Councilor Ring told us there. My brother Gene, he's an ardent supporter of on-site. He spent his working career basically with on-site septic stuff. He's a member of the NOWR board. He was even a national president of it. And years ago, he argued that the town probably shouldn't put in the system they did, and that should work with on-site and reuse the water at the site where it was generated, but that didn't play back then, so anyway, we've moved along. Diana Williams's comment, that's what I thought too. I was impressed with the public process. I thought a lot of people came in and, gave good input, and like the product I'm seeing here. And what, Brad Hill said, surveys of the results, it's just a kind of a look at, what did we think in 2019? Housing for elderly people and stuff like that. If anything comes along, nobody's going to go run to the comp plan and say, we can't do it, it didn't say it in here. It's there, we can refer to it for a few years, because really you should be working then to start on the next rewrite here in a few years. Stuff will be changing. But you have to deal with the stuff that comes in the door and, deal with it then and there. And if somebody came in down there on 66 with a good idea and we needed to get the sewer down there, we wouldn't need to refer to this. We'd work on getting the sewer down there somehow or another. As far as Karen Kaiser's comment about no need for residential, when the town decided to get into the sewer business years ago, they essentially made us into a public utility. And like a public utility, we can't just say, well, we won't go here, we won't go there. If, that would be like asking the REA or EMW, well, don't you go to a portion of that map up there, just stay out of that. If people create a demand, and the REA's done this for years, somebody will get way out on a section line and they'll run a line off out just to them, and then they'll have to, as people move in or something, then they prorate back to that original guy some of the cost he paid to run all that out there. So we can't just say, no, we're not going here, no, we're not going there. We don't have any plans to go anywhere big at this time, but it's now would be more, I think, kind of demand-based. Is there somebody out there asking? We've had people at different times, hey, can you run a line here or there? And as a public utility, we can't say, well, no, we're not going to go there. You have to consider when it comes through, and usually, cost will probably, as much as anything, dictate where you go and what you can do. Excuse me. We're always, mindful of what people can afford and what they can't afford. But you have stuff just intersects, and you try to do things that'll help out, but if, people can't afford it or something, you got to look at that. Goes without saying. As far as Martha Eden's comments about the Equestrian Center and Echo Ridge, again on them, I don't know that we've abandoned any effort on Echo Ridge. And as far as the Equestrian Center, that's Santa Fe County's. We get full use of it. We've paid for it as Santa Fe County taxpayers. I don't think we need to pay for it again as Edgewood taxpayers for the high honor and privilege of cleaning the toilets and stuff. We get the use of it. I think the old saying is, why buy the cow if you get the milk for free? We get access to it, we get to use it, they're taking care of it. I think it's sort of taken care of. Echo Ridge is a little more complicated, but I don't know that we've given up on it. It's just a thing of trying to line up those issues they have with what BLM wants done before they'll proceed with it. And then what Janelle Turner said, that's about right. Comp plan is a big overarching outfit. It doesn't always hit on everything. It doesn't drill down to the granular level and say, this is how this, and this. You do that with your ordinances and your resolutions and stuff. I think we've been pretty good over the years here to amend ordinances and try to fix them as we run into issues that they either don't deal with or they don't deal with well, from animal control through subdivision and stuff. And, you know, it's a public process the whole way through. If people, like Mr. Seegers, have concerns about, you know, what it would cost to pave and stuff like that in a given subdivision, you know, that would be took up when you come to the subdivision outfit. Whether it's, you know, tweaking that ordinance, or if you get an application in and you're discussing with them, you know, what it would take to do a subdivision. And I think, in other words, we don't have to put everything in this plan here today and get it, you know, like say, drilled down to the granular level. We have other opportunities to encounter those problems and deal with them then. And the comp plan is, you know, if we miss on something, you know, I mean, the 2008 one, it didn't get everything right. There's stuff in there that never even got approached to get done. That's kind of the nature of the comp plan. The bigger thing is you need kind of an updated one regularly. So if you do go out for grants and stuff like that, you know, that's one of the questions they ask. Do you have an updated comp plan? And so I think we've got a pretty good product here. It's we've heard here today, you know, it's the result of about 18 months of, you know, public input and stuff like that. And I think we've got a good product here. And I'd certainly urge council to consider passing it or adopting it today. So I will then yield to comments from the governing body.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
In the interest of time, I would just like to reiterate what the purpose of the comp plan is, and this is stated in the document itself. It serves as a guide for future discussions about growth and development. It provides relevant information about character of the community. It fulfills a legal requirement for municipal zoning regulations. It serves as a point of reference for other more specific types of plans and programs in the community. So I think this serves the requirements of the comp plan, and I do want to thank all who participated in the process, from the survey respondents to the steering committee. There were 10 on the steering committee. Residents who took part in the workshops, the P&Z commissioners, of course, they were wonderful leaders at those workshops. And especially a thank you to our facilitators from Mr. Cog, Ms. Rubin, Ms. Geiser, and Ms. Showalter. So thank you all who participated, and all of you that came out on a Saturday morning. Thank you.
You want to go next?
Go ahead.
Okay. I too want to thank everybody who participated in this. You know, I got elected after the last comprehensive plan, so this is my first comprehensive plan experience. I think that we have basically a great document. I think, you know, we could probably summarize it in the words that Ms. Burke said. This is Edgewood's comp plan. We want to do these awesome, amazing things, and the rest of this is legalized demographics and all that kind of stuff. So I think we all have an idea of where we're going. So thank you, Planning and Zoning, thank you, staff, thank you, participants, thank you, Mr. Cog, and for all your time and effort that you've put into this. There are a couple things that I do think we need to clarify, and one of them, or two of them, are the equestrian facility and the 80-acre BLM land. I think maybe it has gotten overlooked by, I'm not sure who, but apparently everybody. We do have a resolution that was passed back in June of 2016 that states we will support the no-cost lease of 80 acres of Bureau of Land Management, Department of Interior land in Torrance County. That is the 80 acres that gives us access to Section 32. Right now, we don't have access to that. It's public land that most people can't get to unless you want to hike there. This resolution basically says, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Edgewood governing body hereby agrees to support a no-cost lease of BLM 80 acres located at Township 9 North, Range 9 East, Section 5 and Section 6 in Torrance County, and agrees to assume ownership, liability, maintenance, and funding responsibilities for the scope of this project, to include the creation of a plan of development. I think that certainly means it should be included as something we plan on doing in our comprehensive plan. The next one is Resolution 2016-07, which is very similar to this. It's a resolution of support to designate and manage the Santa Fe County Equestrian Center as an overnight equestrian rest stop. I don't know if we just forgot to change the toilet paper over there or what, but this resolution says, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Edgewood governing body hereby agrees to support the designation and management of the overnight equestrian rest stop in Santa Fe County and agrees to assume ownership, liability, maintenance, and funding responsibilities for the scope of this project. So even though this doesn't specifically say we have to plan for it, it's an already developed site, but I do think we need to state that we plan on maintaining it for the public so that this doesn't get bypassed. Those are basically my two severe comments that I have on that. Other than that, mine are just basic little typo things. One of the suggestions I had on page 40, you know how we've gone into how many customers are served by Epcor and Trenosa. I think maybe we should say our wastewater is currently serving however many customers. On page, let me see. Page 53, under residential land use, there's a thing there that says including mobile homes. I think that needs to be changed to manufactured. I don't think we really have mobile homes other than at the RV park. And then again, you know, I have some concerns about the timelines. But other than that, I think this is a pretty amazing document. Thank you. There's somebody in the back that I would like to, if council would like to hear from them, I would like to.
Karina, you want
Okay.
to come up and say something?
Good morning, Council and
Good
Mayor.
morning.
So I just have some information for you. That way, for the comprehensive plan, it can better guide your comments that Maida can add into them. So just for the BLM 80 acres, just to give you a quick update, because that was the 2016 resolution that was passed to support the lease of the facility. So kind of, if you followed along with the BLM process with the Taos Field office for the Section 34, it's going to be a similar process with the Rio Puerco office. So in 2016, that resolution was passed, and in 2017, an application for lease was sent to the BLM Taos Field office with a $100 application fee, and that's about the basic of sending in an application. They did not accept that application to lease or accept application to lease to patent, which is lease to purchase. So that application wasn't accepted. And just a little commentary on possibly why that application wasn't accepted. I have no official documentation from the Taos BLM field office, but I have comment from a plan of development was submitted to the BLM Rio Puerco field office in 2016. So they did work on a plan of development when they showed you, I'm sure you probably got showed a plan of development when you supported that resolution.
Right.
So it was showed to the BLM office to request an RMPP lease, which is the kind of lease that we would be asking for. However, a site visit on July 14th, 2018, with the BLM field office, it was determined that a much more involved process would be needed for this lease because of the presence of hazardous materials from lead bullets. Because of the presence of hazardous materials, the BLM field office would be required to conduct a full NEPA assessment, and the town would be expected to both write the assessment and recover the full cost of this assessment. Further assistance can be applied through the NMAD's Brownfields program should the town decide to continue pursuing the RMPP lease option from the BLM Rio Perco field office and later to purchase the parcel. Currently, though, any development of the site is very cost prohibitive because of the contamination and the threat to potential visitors from shooting taking place at the 80-acre parcel. The town has begun seeking other avenues, and they approached the city of Albuquerque to ask about leasing administered lands. So that's kind of a little bit of information on the BLM 80 acres and possibly why it wasn't pursued after once they found out from NEPA. I talked with the NEPA coordinator, and just to give you some information on what's required with following through with the BLM's NEPA process. So you would have to have an environmental assessment, an EIS assessment, and an archaeological assessment. So one possible reason for it not being followed through by the BLM office is because of their workload. They sometimes can conduct these assessments on their own, but depending on workload and year, they may not choose to conduct these. So maybe at that time of application, they were not choosing to use their resources to conduct these services at that time of application. We can always apply again and see if their workload would allow for it again. One possible explanation I could have for this is that the Parks and Recreation Department was choosing to focus further on the Section 34 Echo Ridge because it also has similar NEPA requirements that have to be filled. So that's just a little more information on that, but it's always still an option. You can always apply for BLM RMPP applications any time of the year.
Okay.
So that still is a current option. And with this equestrian center, a little history, it opened in 2013, but in 2009, sorry, that was kind of loud. In 2009, there was a cooperative agreement between Santa Fe County and the town of Edgewood for a joint park and trailhead project. This project outlined the budget and the responsibilities of the town and Santa Fe County. However, this was terminated on 2012, so it terminated before the facility opened. So there actually has not been, since the facility opened in 2013, any joint maintenance agreements. So anything that the town was doing, there was no documented permission to be able to do that on the town's property, which I'm not sure how that works legally, but that may be kind of dangerous for the town to be participating in maintaining a facility that is not theirs. However, this is an option we can, with the equestrian center overnight resolution that you talked about from 2016. A maintenance agreement could be included with something like that, but there's no documentation from Santa Fe County that they supported having a joint agreement. So unless you have any official responses from Santa Fe County regarding that, the council does support that agreement. We would have to work to get Santa Fe County on board with that agreement.
And I think that's kind of my understanding of what these resolutions say, is that the council is in favor of working on both of those projects.
Yes.
And therefore, they should be included in the comprehensive plan as something I think we still support, or we need to bring these resolutions back and have another vote that says we no longer support this, because as council members and mayors, we take an oath to support these resolutions and ordinances. And so to find out we're not supporting them is concerning.
And I don't think that it's not that the council is not supporting these documents, but Santa Fe County would have to be on board to let us maintain their property. We can't just say we want to maintain it. Similarly with the Santa Fe County Senior Center and Garden, we support the Senior Center and the Garden, but we don't have any agreement that we go maintain that or go on their property to do any work for it. So I think it's important that we get that legally taken care of with them to protect not only the staff on the property, but the users and the town as a whole in case of any sort of legal situations we wouldn't want to get tied up with. But I did like the way that Maida did talk about them in the comprehensive plan. Let me get to those pages. On pages 43 and 42, I thought that the BLM, that she left it with the BLM 80 acres, that more would be needed in order to make the site leasable, so it's still could be an ongoing project. It's not saying that we cannot lease that, it's impossible. So I kind of like the way that that was said, just as a comment. And also with the equestrian center, that I think it is good to note that it is owned by Santa Fe County and maintained by Santa Fe County. But I just wanted to give you some more information. That way you can be able to word it to Maida in a way that you feel comfortable. Is there any other questions or anything I can clarify on further for you, or anything with Section 34?
No, I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina.
No, those are my comments.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Jaramillo.
Thank you. Just wanted to start off by thanking everyone for being here. I really appreciate hearing from you and the priorities and what's important to you. And also, like others, I really appreciate all the hard work that has gone into this by P&Z and the commission and staff, and everyone who has taken a long look at this and made changes. To Mr. Cog, I wanted to tell you all that this looks very good, very professional, very good template that you brought to us, and I really appreciate everything that's gone into it, as others have said. In the interest of time, I guess what I'm thinking of doing there is maybe just as I go through changes that I would like to see, just doing a quick motion, and if there's a second, then we can discuss it and vote on it. And if there's not a second, then it just dies for lack of a second. But otherwise, I'm just going to go through all these changes, and then then Maida won't know what to change or not, right? So we kind of need a decision from council.
Well, we don't have anything at this point in the agenda about action, taking votes on it. Go ahead and give us your discussion, and let's see where it goes.
Are we in C? 2C? Oh, no, we're not. We're in A2.
A2.
Okay, I see. Gosh, okay. Then I'll run through them. So just to address what former Councilor Ring stated about chip sealing, I agree that we need more funding, maybe more paving and chip sealing on our roads. And on page 73 in the goals and objectives in H2, I think that is probably going to cover that concern of his. I mean, it doesn't specifically say chip seal, but I think that it is there, evaluating the roads and prioritizing them for improvement. But if council thinks that there's something extra needed on there, then I would be happy to entertain that as well. Just making sure that our roads are a priority, because we hear that from the public a lot. Former Mayor Hill's comments on young and elder housing, I did look at that, which is page 78. And I think that we just need to add to objective 2 at the top of the page there, where it says support special housing opportunities for the elderly and other special needs populations. I think we just need to add for young adults, and that would cover that concern. For private to public roads, that is something that even in my own neighborhood, people have questions about, and I think that is a little unclear to the public. So I agree with that comment that we should add something into our objectives, possibly in goal H. to just identify in the next like 1 to 5 years the feasibility of taking making the private roads public or some system for that. I'm not familiar what's been done in other municipalities when they annex, but that's something that could be looked at in 1 to 5 years, I believe. Something important to me, as I've mentioned to you guys before, is just as you've heard with our aging population, is for a municipal cemetery. And I know that nobody likes to think about that, right? But I was just thinking in the next 1 to 5 years, we could potentially look at the feasibility of obtaining land in a really nice cemetery for our community, a place where people do want to go, a place where it's maintained very well, and we can go and see our loved ones who have passed away. So I'd ask council to see if you'd be willing to explore that and add in an objective for that. I did want to see if we could add the Section 16 map for the Edgewood Commons that is actually in the, it's in the Edgewood Commons Master Plan from 2014. And there's just this really awesome map here that shows the proposed uses and plan of Section 16. And I know that might be looked at. It's one of our objectives to look at it again. It's this one, Maida, in the future. But for now, I thought this was really neat, and a lot of work did go into it. So I thought maybe we could just add this map and make a reference to the work that was done in 2014. Trails, of course, I know Councilor Abrams has priorities on that, and we all support that, I think, and the public has asked for that. I do think that's covered in page 73H3 in developing a trail design standards and a trails systems plan. So I think that we should be okay on that part there. As I was going through the public comments and the survey that's in the appendix in the back, I was reminded of just how many people want a swimming pool. And I heard it in the campaign. I've heard it over all the years. We've heard, if you look at the survey results in that appendix, let me point it out too. Not in the comments part, but where the graphs are. On page 6 of the questionnaire report of Appendix D, I noticed on these graphs that these two right here were the most strong of all of the questions. And they say there aren't enough things for children to do in Edgewood, and there's a big orange gap that says strongly disagree and an even bigger gap that says disagree. So to me, it looks like, I don't know, maybe 75% disagree or strongly disagree. So and then there are enough things for teens to do in Edgewood is another really big area. So that's a priority for me. It always has been youth programming and possibly a swimming pool as well. So I would like to see that being moved up in priority, youth programs and the possibility of a swimming pool. I think where we are located would make it much, much easier financially, just being in the East Mountains, sort of centrally located, than, for example, the swimming pool that went into Estancia and they had such a hard time. But look, there's not a lot of population over there either to support it. So that is something that here, I think, could be potentially a wonderful thing for our community. We could even work with private partners on that, such as First Choice. So let's see. I did have a question on Campbell Ranch and what was discussed during this process on the vision for that, or any changes or support for Campbell Ranch. I know, Maida, you can probably summarize what's in here in relation to Campbell Ranch. And then in relation to that, oh, I know it's not easily summarized, is it? But kind of in relation to that, I keep hearing people say that if Edgewood had its own water system, we would be required to give water to Campbell Ranch. And so I just need clarification. I need the public and for myself to clarification on if that is true or not. So.
I would also defer to staff on that, but I know that the information that we had gathered on it, it seemed like there has been an ongoing legal battle to get more water rights for Campbell Ranch, and that they have most recently appealed that ruling, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tanya, but there are some existing water right availability for them, but it may not support the type of expansion envisioned in that initial plan. So in this plan, we tried to, that master plan is still in place. Nothing has changed on that. And it doesn't preclude that development, but it will be dictated somewhat by what water availability legally they pursue and are able to obtain from what we could gather. Does that summarize it?
That summarizes it, yes.
Okay. And then what about the requirement, let's just say, for example, if the town was to take over EPCOR by eminent domain, does that change anything as far as water goes?
Mayor, can you?
I don't know of anything, and I'd kind of hate to speculate.
Okay, follow-up question on that. When you said we were a public utility with the wastewater, and then if somebody required service, we could not just say, oh no, we're not going to go there. Would that be similar if we have a water company? Or the water
It would be similar in
utility?
the area where we had the water company.
Yes?
Can I make a comment?
Hang on. That's something we have to sort out, but I don't know of anything that would trigger something like that.
There would be a water availability study
Yeah,
that
I
would
mean-
have to be done.
Could we hear from?
That goes back basically to their original master plan. They would provide the water one way or the other. I mean, that's on them. That's what's held them up all these years.
Right, that's what's held them up.
Okay. Can we hear from Mr. Hill?
I guess we could.
This is just a clarification here, if I may. And so you refer to what you refer to as a public utility. Under the law, basically, a public utility is not what a municipal utility is. There's a distinction between a municipal utility and a public utility. So, Edwards Manor, I just want to clarify that. It may still have that requirement, but I think I would advise you to use the word municipal utility as opposed to public utility.
Yeah.
A public utility is regulated by the Public Regulation
Right.
Commission. A municipal utility is not.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
But still have the basic thing of if they seek service, you need to try to provide it.
Okay, thanks.
Counselor Jaramillo, you have anything else?
I'm just looking through my pages here. I do know that I have quite a few suggestions on the goals and objectives, just mainly to do with timing. Is it best for me to do that now or during the action part?
What have you got?
Okay, so on page 69, we'll start there with the adopted goals, objectives, actions, strategies, and time frame. And at the bottom, so this is goal A, objective 3, and it says encourage rainwater harvesting. It just says the town will provide information about rainwater harvesting and the appropriate use of gray water on the town website. And I thought 5 to 10 years seemed like, I mean, you could just post it on the website tomorrow. So unless there's like more
And I think you
substance
could.
to that,
I think you could. I mean, I wouldn't hold hard on this thing here.
yeah, I mean,
But the time, correct me if I'm wrong, but the time frame doesn't mean that we're not going to start it until
Right.
5 or 10 years. It means that it'll be carried out probably between 5 to 10 years.
True.
You know, you have to put things in place in the ordinances and things like that, but it would be a completed goal within 5 to 10 years.
Right, you hope to achieve it.
That's what that time frame means. It doesn't mean, yeah, we'll put that off for another 5
Right,
years.
no.
We don't care. That's not what that means.
So when the objective is to encourage rainwater harvesting, we're going to be doing that like ongoing, aren't we?
Mr. Mayor, if I might, Santa Fe County requires it,
Yes.
so I mean, having information out there and encouraging our community to harvest rainwater and reuse gray water, I think is an admirable thing.
Mhm.
The current Environment Department rules, however, in some instances have limited gray water, and it requires certain kinds of permits. So having that information on our website and encouraging it would make 5 to 10 years probably the range of time where our community could adopt those things. Rainwater reuse, though, is required. It's a part of the construction rules right now.
Counselor Abrams, it's my understanding that in the town of Edgewood, we're exempt from that. That is one of the reasons why the builders like to build in the town of Edgewood as opposed to in the county.
The only thing I would add to that, if you look around, a lot of people are doing it anyway.
What did you say, Tanya?
I said, we do not have that requirement in our ordinance right now. I figured it'd get shot down.
Huh. Interesting. Well, I think it is great to reuse water. I just was kind of wondering, I mean, it's similar to page 70, goal B, objective 2, where it says the town will provide information about available services on the Town of Edgewood website 1 to 5 years. And maybe what you're really saying, that this isn't just to put it on the website simply. Maybe it's really a bigger strategy, like to educate the public and to turn a certain percentage over to reuse. So this seems a little simplistic because, like I said, you could do that just tomorrow. What do you think, Maida, about, I mean, is that really a good strategy to have, or does it need to be something more substantive to accomplish this objective?
So I think the limitation when we talked about this was on the gray water reuse, because there are many, many requirements on that. So the discussion centered on, we want to encourage that activity and educate the public. So we didn't continue it further into, there was a lot of support for that activity, but there wasn't quite as much that the town maybe wants to take on in terms of, the town doesn't regulate that. So, so yeah, in terms of education, that was something that we had kind of moved toward instead of saying the town will do this. And in that way, I think it's completely reasonable to put that more information on the website within 1 to 5 years. I'll leave it up to council, but yeah, it does strike me as similar to B2 that you brought up.
Okay. And maybe the strategy is to educate the public.
And if that needs to be slightly reworded for more education, read it one more time.
Or we could just say ongoing, I don't know, or 1 to 5. The same thing about the medical transportation services. I mean, providing the information on the website. I just thought that that's more of an ongoing thing. Or I guess I would be happy if we just changed it to 1 to 5 years.
I don't see that as inappropriate.
Is that okay? Well, anyways, this is just my comments right now. We can't take action.
I'll note it, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I have notes of all of the comments.
Okay. You got the one on page 70, B2?
70B2, was that already 1 to 5 years, or you think
Yes,
it
it
should
is.
be?
Yeah, so just being consistent, I guess, whatever we decide, we'll just be consistent about it. Page 71, Goal C, Objective 1, we've heard from Ms. Burke, and we've had this discussion before about collaborating with private entities where appropriate for the water needs of the community. That's something that's occurring, it's just ongoing, it's something that's happening now. And under Goal D, Objective 2, again, I was just kind of confused with town will explore potential funding sources for wastewater infrastructure. Do we need to be more specific on that?
I don't think so. You just, about every year you have something on the ICIP for wastewater.
And it does say for the needs of commercial areas, so I like that in the objective itself. Okay. Then on page 72, Goal F, Objective 1, the thing that just kind of stood out to me as I took another look at this is that we were missing something about pursuing funding and grants here. A lot of the other goals talk about, identifying funding or pursuing grants or something. I just thought that would be good. That's something that Roger Holden always did. Did I miss it, Counselor? For recreation and park facilities. And I do know that was one of the reasons we hired our another administrative assistant too, was to help write grants. And I think, Carla, you have experience in grant writing as well, right? So that's something that I think we could really use. It's something that Roger Holden was always doing.
It says in the very bottom of Objective 4, town will support the Parks and Recreation Department. in its
Okay, so I did
grant
miss
funding.
it. Okay, I was looking in Objective 1, but.
Additionally, in Objective 2, the first bullet point is town will prioritize recreational facilities projects and identify funding for prioritized projects.
Okay, very good.
I think all together, but let me know if that's not quite it.
No, I just missed it on that part.
Yeah, there's a lot. Thanks for looking.
On page 73, Goal G, Objective 1, the time frame 5 to 10 years for identifying redesign of Section 16. I was wondering, maybe that's, I just think that's really far off. If there's something we want to change and we don't want the State Land Office to use the land for something else, that's really far to put it off, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mayor, again, it's not being put off until then. It's a goal that will be completed in 5 to 10 years.
But just looking at funding for redesigning it, I mean, that's just like coming up with another one of these, right? I mean, it wouldn't take even 5 years to do that. Maybe I'm just very ambitious, but I like to just get things done. I like to just, if we're going to redesign Section 16, if we think that's what we have to do, well, let's do it next year. Let's not do it in 5 to 10 years. I mean, that's like putting things off.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, sir.
The master plan design for Section 16 has only begun to be executed, and I think the design is fine at this point. And we are a good number of years into moving forward with that.
Yeah.
We've seen what has happened with First Choice. The town has built several facilities on Section 16, and there doesn't appear to be any movement with the State Land Office at this point that I know of to make anything happen. They know our intent by the master plan that they helped us write. So if you know of somebody or someone or an entity who wants to make a change to it and come and build something, I will be the first to jump in there and help you with that. But I would prefer to spend our funds on some of the resources in our community that we need to commit them to at this particular point. That master plan can stand for a good number of years, I believe, before we have to take action. We are currently in the process of putting a bridge across Bachelor Draw, which I think will happen very shortly. Once that has, of course, been accomplished, we will begin to move on trails and other resources in Section 16, which can help to dictate what the State Land Office will do. And in that process, we will be in contact directly with the State Land Office, because we can't we can't put a grain of sand out there without their approval. So I think that negotiation and those relationships and that future is well in hand. So I don't know. I think we don't need to do that again right now, but that's my opinion.
So maybe the objective really isn't necessary, because the goal here is to develop a physical town center with a town square and activities, which I've heard the public wanted at Section 16. So when we have a plan that exists.
We're kind of doing that with moving our town facilities here, our library here, our town hall here. We're now helping to maintain the playing fields that are out in front of this facility. We have our park next door to here. I think we're doing that, and we need to continue to do that.
Right, I agree.
I think that goal I think the goal's accurate, I think.
Well, I understand that the goal is accurate and it's what we want and it's what's happening. What I meant was that maybe revisiting the design of Section 16 is not necessary, because what I'm hearing you say is that we don't need to do that right now. We already have a plan. We already have a design. So why do we need to redesign? I guess maybe that came up in the committee. Why did people want to redesign?
Well, and that may be why they put it off a little while on doing it, that it's something to do, but not right away.
So the discussion was that, yes, things have changed on the ground. A lot has happened since that plan was adopted. And a lot of the desires expressed through the workshops for more amenities and activities and things were, the discussion became, yes, this would be an appropriate place for all of those activities. What I'm hearing from Councilor Abrams is that a lot is still in the works and things are still moving and happening. And I think revisiting the master plan to make sure that the design addresses these amenity needs and some additional needs as things change, especially in this kind of rapidly changing area of the town, will be very useful. But I agree that there's already some stuff happening right now that maybe revisiting it at the moment might be very soon, so I think there's more work to do in the redesign, just to update it for what's happening and what is envisioned for amenities. But I think it is going in the right direction for what we heard was expressed. The goal is the same per Councilor Abrams' comment.
And I think the other thing is, if something comes along that pushes it to, we need to do something on it, we'll do something on it.
So I think that's why
the whole thing with a
that
comp
was-
plan. Some of it gets done right away, some of it sits for a while, some of it never even gets looked at.
So I have a question. So I guess I'm kind of confused as to then just how important are the timeframes if we're ongoing some of these, or they may change, and I mean, do we really need to? It sounds like these are recommended timeframes.
They are.
Not necessarily solid timeframes. And so maybe that is the interpretation we need to know, is these are just kind of recommended timeframes.
Correct, and not in a flippant, let's disregard them way, but it's more of an indication of the town's priorities as the governing body. So that's how we were trying to proceed with these. It is helpful to know kind of what the town's priorities are for timeframes, but this is not a binding thing, and some things may become more or less feasible as time goes on, and that may shift, so.
Okay. I told you, this is my first time doing a comp plan, so I'm kind of maybe putting more emphasis on these timeframes than I necessarily need to. So that clarification helped me a lot.
Oh, okay.
So can we wrap this up? We got about 15 minutes left to,
The goals and objectives have already been adopted.
right.
So I'm not sure that,
No, but at the timeframes,
were they in the goals and objectives?
No.
They haven't been adopted as part of those resolutions. Yeah.
Just, sorry.
Yeah, good clarification.
Mayor, I just only had one other on goal and objective 1 that I thought was ongoing, to bring adult education programs to the town, because it's something we've been doing for years and years and years already through CNM, and so it's ongoing. It is something that's happening. I know Carla's working on GED, so I thought that one was ongoing.
Which one was that?
Page 77, goal and objective 1 on adult education programs. I think that's great. But I think it's already in process. Well, I guess, with Tanya's clarification, this is a new way of sort of looking at it as completing that in a way. So, yeah, that's interesting. It's a new way of looking at it. Like, when are we going to finish this objective?
Yeah.
Not when are we going to start, so, okay.
Ready to move on?
I'm ready to move on to action.
One thing before we move to action, Councilor Abraham, you suggested several edits in Appendix D.
in Appendix D.
Yeah, you were talking about on page 55, and I think that was in Appendix D that you were talking about?
No, it was
No?
it was
Okay,
in
you
the
were talking about in the comp plan.
Yes, uh-huh. No, I
Okay,
didn't,
all
yeah,
right.
I
I just wanted
didn't
that as a
address
clarification.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and yield my time in the interest of expedience. And,
May I read back the edits that I heard today, just
Okay.
to make sure that that's still, maybe if there's one that stands out as council does not support that, or just to make sure I'm doing all the edits you would like. So, what I heard was, page 55, remove that reference to affordable housing. Make sure Entranosa, the numbers of users is in the Edgewood area and not for other zip codes. Change drinking water on page 38 to domestic, commercial, and fire flow. Change item S, L, and S on the memo. The things in red that didn't quite make it into the edits, do those.
Yep.
Provide council with the timeframe tally sheet. I don't know if that's still something you'd like, but I can.
I would, yeah, just for
I'll
my own
provide that.
information.
For the equestrian center and the 80-acre BLM land, it's easy to add a short sentence that says, these are supported in X, Y, and Z resolutions right after those, but maybe Karina's comments kind of dispelled, I don't think this runs contrary to those goals, like she said, but if council would like me to add those, that's easy. So let me know.
I just feel like it needs to be clarified that council does support continuing to, I don't want the public to think we're giving up on some of these things.
Sure.
And until we have given up on them, I think we need to say, council's supporting, moving forward with whatever, or whatever the resolution, or just make a notation about the resolution passed.
These are supported.
To support it, yeah.
Sure. If council's okay with that, I'll include those. Page 40, add wastewater served, how many customers the wastewater facilities serve?
Serving. Well, I think that's only appropriate since we're saying how much the water companies are serving. I think it gives an idea of.
Carla, is that a number that's how many customers the wastewater treatment plant serves? I'll get with you on that. Page 53, change mobile to manufactured housing. And then for the goals and objectives, page 78, objective 2, it says about housing for elderly and other populations, add young adults. There may be, is there a term that's kind of young homeowner or aspiring young home buyers? Just young adults, young adults.
Anyone over 18, so.
First-time home buyers?
I think it would be, entry-level home buyers or something like
First-time
that.
home buyers.
I'm agreeable to that.
First-time home buyers, okay.
Okay.
Because that doesn't necessarily mean young people.
No. No, I had a lady buy her first house at 71.
Goal H, look at the feasibility of taking on private roads, 1 to 5 years, as an objective. Again, that was, as Carla had mentioned, adopted by resolution, so I can do that if you would like. Add an objective about looking into the feasibility of a municipal cemetery somewhere. If you'd like me to do that, let me know.
Maybe an open space. No.
For section 16.
I was thinking about putting it in goal B, support health and social services in the community.
Right.
That's probably more appropriate.
I think that would be fine.
Is look into the feasibility of a municipal cemetery about right?
Is that okay with you guys? I mean, I don't want
think it's a
to
good
be
idea.
blazing a trail here that nobody wants.
That didn't come up, that's
Didn't come
really
up,
yeah.
but it's something we could consider.
Sure.
I mean,
I think it's,
I'm not scared.
I'll add that in. Add the section 16 map from the 2014 Edgewood Commons Plan.
it's on page 14, just so you know.
Thanks. Page 14. Youth programs and swimming pool. So the reason why it's look into the feasibility is, has been because that would be the first step, for sure.
Hold up just 1 second. You mentioned that section 16 map on page 14.
Oh, it's of the
section
actual
16.
comment.
The actual map.
All of
it's-
that.
Yeah, it's
I
just a
think
really
the
nice.
appropriate place for it
It
would be
would
over
help people see the vision of section 16.
Sure.
where the section 16 is.
I think it's in the goals and objectives, Mayor.
Oh, right
Goals
here.
and objectives.
Goal G, well, both right there, sorry.
For section 16, though, that map, it would be
Better.
where we talk about it in the document.
Right.
That would fit
Yeah.
together.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
I'm getting at.
Okay.
Right.
And then I do see the feasibility of various water recreation options on page 73.
Yeah.
It was very popular, and I think it's important to include other feasible projects or potential projects for, like, Splash Park came up quite a bit, but I know a lot of people at whatever point have been promised a swimming pool, and
That
so
would go
they were very
on
excited about
the
it.
section 16 is on page 58.
Page 58.
That would be appropriate.
For the section 16 map.
Right.
Add on page 58.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, depending on funding availability for that and what would be most feasible. And then in terms of the timeframes, goal A3, the recommendation was to change it to 1 to 5 years. C1, change to ongoing. G1 is the section 16 one, and I heard some mixed input on that for changing it to 1 to 5 years. So, up to council. And then N1 changed to ongoing. So those are all the edits that I have from council.
Yep, you got it.
Ready to move?
Mr. Mayor, I make a
Hold
motion.
on, hold on.
Okay, I'm holding on. I want to get it done.
Gotta go to the item that handles that. Number C, discussion, consideration, and action on Resolution 2020-03, adopting the comprehensive land use plan for the town.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the comprehensive land use plan for the town of Edgewood, incorporating the mentioned edits that we have discussed and agreed upon today.
I'll second.
We'll all second.
Motion's been made and seconded, apparently by all, to approve the adoption of Resolution 2020-03, adopting the comprehensive land use plan for the town of Edgewood. We'll do it on a roll call vote. Start here, Counselor Hawley.
Aye.
Counselor Abrams.
Aye.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
And Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Thank you, council.
Mr. Mayor, we have done this with 5 minutes to spare.
Be damn good.
And I would like to thank everyone who has
Yes,
contributed even a tiny amount to this. This is really, really good. Thank you very
Good
much.
deal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cog, and thank the public.
And I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
All opposed?
11:50.